Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Our top story, the U.S. is suing TikTok. The Justice Department alleging the Chinese app exposed millions of American children to adult content and collecting their data. Unprecedented foreign intelligence threats facing the U.S., while the top intelligence agency is most concerned about China and Russia.
Our government is too late to understand the threat, nor to react to the threat.
Senator Marco Rubio warning that Beijing might use Ukraine's reconstruction efforts to boost Chinese influence there. He calls the Chinese regime America's greatest adversary. And China just introduced new internet regulation, a digital ID system that connects online usernames to their owner's legal name, face, documents, and phone numbers. How could it impact everyday life inside China? An expert breaks it down. The Justice Department is suing TikTok and its Chinese parent. It accuses the app of failing to protect online privacy for American children. The DOJ said TikTok collected information from children under the age of 13 without the consent of their parents. The government also accused TikTok of knowingly allowing children to create standard TikTok accounts instead of kids mode accounts with reduced access. As a result, millions of American children under 13 use the app to interact with adult users and access adult content. The Federal Trade Commission is also backing the DOJ lawsuit. A TikTok spokesperson told NTD that it denies wrongdoing, saying many of the accusations relate to past events and have been addressed. TikTok is one of the most popular social media sites for U.S. teens. The platform has 170 million American users. In May, President Joe Biden signed a law that would get TikTok removed from U.S. app stores unless it finds a non-Chinese owner by January. Right now, TikTok is owned by Chinese company ByteDance. TikTok responded to the law by suing the U.S. government. Record-breaking heat sweeping through China. In the country's most populous city, Shanghai, temperatures have climbed to over 100 degrees. This is a historic area in Shanghai under a thermal camera. The device says the area's surface temperature is over 40 degrees Celsius, equivalent to 104 degrees Fahrenheit. The city issued its highest level heat wave alert on Thursday. For many, umbrellas and fans are a must. Tourists were spotted cooling off in a public fountain.
Everyone is wearing sun protection shirts, holding parasols, and taking precautions against the sunshine. It'll be cooler to stay indoors where there's air conditioning.
I'm sweating a lot today. That's why you need to stay hydrated. That's why I carry a bottle of water in my bag. Drinking a lot of water can prevent heat stroke.
Zooming out, China just recorded its hottest July in 6 decades. In eastern Hangzhou, a thermal camera shows temperature there has climbed to 50 degrees Celsius or 129 degrees Fahrenheit. Some residents flocked to a creek to cool off.
The water is cool, so I don't feel that hot. I feel happy to be here.
Elsewhere, the heat wave is also scorching western and northeastern China, with the heat in eastern China expected to get worse. Chinese state media said that at least 30 people have died and 35 others are missing in a southeastern Chinese city. The Thursday report comes after days of heavy rain unleashed by Typhoon Gaimi.
Severe floods swamped China's southern Hunan province. On Sunday, a mudslide slammed into a homestay house in a popular weekend spot, killing 15 people. Elsewhere in Hunan, the bodies of 3 people were found on Monday. They're believed to be victims of another landslide. In nearby mountainous villages, roads were damaged and bridges were washed away. Another death in China was also tied to the storm. A delivery driver was on a scooter and was struck by falling tree branches during high winds in Shanghai. China has been hit by months of severe weather in southern provinces with record rain and heat waves. During the monsoon season in Asia right now, heavy rainfall has triggered landslides. This has resulted in over 200 deaths in India and China in just the past week.
America's new counterintelligence strategy singling out China and Russia as the most significant intelligence threats facing the U.S. President Biden signed the strategy Thursday. It was released by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. It said the agency is most concerned about the cyber threats from China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. Intelligence agencies have worked to bust their covert operations, but many of the illicit activities still go undetected. The report described current threats from foreign intelligence as unprecedented. It noted that adversaries are working together more often to grow their impacts. The strategy calls for investing in technology that can help U.S. intelligence agencies and for using more artificial intelligence to detect espionage activities. That's not all. Another similar statement has a warning about some of the same U.S. adversaries. That's as the 2024 U.S. presidential election has entered its last 100-day countdown. The U.S. government sent out the warning on Monday, alerting certain foreign actors that attempts to influence the election would not be tolerated. 3 countries were called out in the statement: China, Russia, and Iran. The agency warns it's aware that the People's Republic of China, China's formal name, is using social media to sow divisions in the U.S. and portray democratic systems as chaotic. The agency raised an example of China meddling with the 2022 midterm elections through harming U.S. candidates. The agency also warned that China could seek to disparage candidates, which the regime views as threats. To talk more about the unprecedented intelligence threats to the U.S. from Russia and China and the new counterintelligence strategy signed by President Biden, we spoke with Casey Fleming, CEO of Black Ops Partners. Casey Fleming, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you back on the show.
Great to be back.
Now, President Biden has signed a new national counterintelligence strategy that warns that the U.S. is facing unprecedented threats from adversarial intelligence agencies, with China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea as the main culprits. What do you make of this? What is your main reaction to this?
Too late and too little. It's something that's been going on for decades. It's gotten really worse over the past 10 or 12 years. At least that's what we're seeing with our clients. And our government is too late to understand the threat, nor to react to the threat.
Now, this term unprecedented, what does it mean here? How is it different from the threats we saw in the past?
Unprecedented is to the scale and the scope of what they're seeing. And again, it's what we've been seeing for years through our clients, but it's unprecedented to the scale. So it's not just the nation states. The nation states are employing the private sector in their nation states to expand the reach and the coverage as well as the damage. And at the same time, it's they are extending arm's length and plausible deniability that, oh, it's not us, it's these rogue people that are doing that. So it's a concerted effort. We're the first people to actually probably say it, or one of the first people, but this is what war looks like in 2024. And it's the prelude to a hot war. And it's really an unrestricted war, which you're doing all this weakness type of activity to weaken your enemy before, say, a hot war.
Now, this strategy also notes that these countries, adversarial countries, are actually working together to try and take down the U.S. Is that something new? Have we seen them working together before?
That actually is new. We have not seen them working before up until about 18 months ago when China and Russia decided to be best buddies. We haven't seen it until that really kind of inked it for them and for us to realize that. So they are working together. It's divide and conquer and to expand their reach, which is very concerning to the U.S. and to the rest of our allies, because this really is what war looks like in 2024.
Now, expanding on that, the strategy goes on to note that these adversaries are using commercial but also private companies here in the U.S. to cause mayhem, saying that they can surveil and collect data on Americans. What can adversaries do with that type of information?
Plan destruction, plan malware, plan to shut off critical infrastructure, and basically crippling us. If you look at it, over the past 40 plus years, we've built our economy on technology. And that technology has a positive side, which is the productivity, but also it has a negative side that can be weaponized against us. So that's really what you're seeing. And what can be done? hold our elected officials, that's federal, state, local officials, accountable, and say enough is enough. Stop sharing data with China. And if we stop sharing, it doesn't mean that China and Russia aren't stealing it, and North Korea as well, and Iran, and the laundry list of adversaries that keep growing against the U.S. and the free world. So it's hold our elected officials accountable, hold our big tech companies, the companies that offer the technology and sell it at exorbitant prices to us, hold them accountable and say, no more. We do not want to share our data. That's our data. How dare you share our data? So it's those things. So hold our elected officials accountable, hold big data and big technology accountable and say, you're not selling my data anymore, and you need to protect it. And if you fail to protect it, then there's going to be class action lawsuits.
Casey Fleming, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Washington redirecting its attention to Asia with an eye on China. America's top diplomat Antony Blinken wrapping up his Asia tour Thursday. It marks his longest trip to the Indo-Pacific to date. Stops included Laos, Vietnam, Japan, the Philippines, Singapore, and Mongolia, all are countries neighboring China. Washington's top diplomat for East Asia said the trip demonstrates the U.S. is all in on Asia, adding that the U.S. is building a network of relationships that advance interests in the region. Blinken met with his counterparts from India, Australia, and Japan on Monday. Together, these countries form a group known as the Quad. In a statement, they said they were seriously concerned about the situation in the East and South China Seas without directly mentioning China. The ministers vowed to beef up maritime security in the region. Beijing has been acting increasingly aggressive there, clashing with the Philippines, sailing ships near Japan, and threatening to invade Taiwan. An important takeaway from the trip is a deal with Japan. On Sunday, U.S. and Japanese defense chiefs inked the most significant upgrade to the alliance in 6 decades. It aims to solve one problem: how to better command the 50,000 American troops in Japan in times of crisis. It all comes down to the command and control structure. For a long time, U.S. forces in Japan lacked the authority to move the American troops on the island. The U.S. Indo-Pacific Command gets to call the shots, but it's based in Hawaii, 19 hours behind Tokyo and over 4,000 miles away. To solve the challenge, the deal would send a 3-star general to lead the U.S. forces in Japan. Florida Senator Marco Rubio raising fears that the Chinese regime will gain influence in Ukraine under the guise of reconstruction. He says it would be malpractice to allow Beijing to get involved in the reconstruction in any way, adding that the CCP is America's greatest adversary.
China's so-called 12-point peace plan for the war includes promoting post-conflict reconstruction. Beijing claimed it would support and participate in this effort. The senator introduced a bill to deter Beijing's influence in Ukraine this week. It would require the Secretary of State and Ukraine to come up with a system to review investments, especially from China. Rubio says both U.S. and Democratic allies in Europe must counter the threat. Rubio, along with his colleagues on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, sent a letter to Secretary Blinken last year. They expressed concern over the federal government welcoming the CCP's involvement in diplomatic mediation of Russia's war in Ukraine.
A rare protest in China demanding democracy and calling for the removal of the head of the Chinese Communist Party, Xi Jinping. It's echoing a one-man protest in Beijing from 2 years ago. A banner reads, "No cultural revolution, we want reform. No autocrats, we want ballots. No slavery, we are citizens." The slogans were displayed on an overpass in Hunan province. Alongside it, a loudspeaker repeatedly played similar slogans touted in a young man's voice. Quote, "Freedom, democracy, and ballots. Strike, boycott classes, and remove dictator Xi Jinping." A video shared online showed vehicles passing under the overpass and onlookers taking notice of the display. It appears to echo a one-man protest staged 2 years ago against China's draconian COVID-19 lockdown measures. Back then, 2 banners were hung on a bridge in Beijing. One of them reads, "Say no to COVID-19 tests, yes to food." No to lockdowns, yes to freedom. No to lies, yes to dignity. No to cultural revolution, yes to reform. No to the great leader, yes to voting. Don't be a slave, be a citizen. The other reads, let's go on strike from classes and work and remove the traitorous dictator Xi Jinping. A loudspeaker on the bridge repeated the slogans. The man who allegedly launched the protest was dubbed China's Bridge Man. Chinese authorities arrested him, and he's been detained in an unknown location since. China's strict audits and censorship of speech and other freedoms are known worldwide, but now a digital ID system is making waves. It's designed to locate the names, faces, and personal info behind social media posts, and it's being seen as the harshest of its kind. An expert on China affairs sheds light on the new measure.
Beijing issued the draft of the policy last Friday and now is collecting feedback on it nationwide before the end of August. But when a number of scholars and law professors expressed their opposition to the new policy, their posts were soon scrapped from the internet. The phenomenon quickly sparked heavy criticism, with many mocking the feedback collection process as just for show.
There is increasingly no space left for Chinese people, not even for your emotions or thoughts. As soon as you type something or say something on a digital platform, it can be instantly collected. Over time, the Chinese authorities can fully grasp a person's basic stance, viewpoints, and activities. This is the true strategy behind the Chinese Communist Party's so-called trusted network identity, to further tighten control over the people.
The draft says Chinese authorities will issue a digital ID to anyone with Chinese citizenship or permanent residency in China. It also requires facial recognition and phone number verification.
The current approach of the Chinese Communist Party is essentially implementing prison-like management on everyone. As long as you have an online ID and a digital certificate, the authorities have access to all your data and information.
The draft stated that, if adopted, getting a digital ID won't be mandatory for now, but it doesn't guarantee it won't be required later. China has promoted other regulations from optional to mandatory in the past. Flora Hua, NTD News.
That's all for today's China in Focus on YouTube. We're now sharing a shortened version of our program here after being demonetized for 3 years. If you'd like to support us, consider donating. Find us at donorbox.org/China-in-focus or subscribe to our partner platform Epic TV, where you can watch our full episodes. Just click the link down below. Here's what to look out for in our second half. A Chinese university rolls out a new program for studying marriage. It offers courses like matchmaking and marriage counseling. Oversupply and bankruptcies. The West says China is flooding global markets with cheap solar panels. Now concerns are rising that the surplus could harm developing countries too.
Too much production, which lowered prices, which made these companies not very profitable. And then the demand just isn't there. That's obviously the formula for a bad market.
And global hedge funds slashing their investments in Chinese stocks, all while directing new interest in Japanese markets. More on that after the break here on China in Focus. Thanks for watching China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. See you soon.